Three, two, one. All right, we are live. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Walk and Talk mobile podcast. So, on this channel, what we do, I go live every Sunday at 10 in the morning. I pick a topic and I walk and I talk with you guys. My intentions for this podcast is if you're someone who's either trying to lose weight or in general trying to improve your life, if you're also on the go, why not put me in your pocket? Listen to me as you do your tasks, whether that's doing cardio yourself, perhaps you're cleaning the house, driving to work, whatever it is that you've got going on, I've got you. Today's topic, I want to talk about alcohol and sobriety. Now, I apologize in advance if I do a little bit of sneezing today. It did rain pretty heavy last night. And with the spring, early summer vibes going on, my allergies do tend to flare up in the morning. So talking about alcohol, I have been sober myself for about 3 months now. And I can tell you guys definitively that the results of this have been absolutely incredible, life-changing in fact. The reason that I went sober is a little bit different from most people, as there was no major event that happened. I would say that I don't want to be crass here, but there's no sob story, there's no DUI, there was no event that transpired. What really happened was that I started researching more and more topics about health and fitness so that I could help people with their problems. And as a result of this, I started researching alcohol. Now, what I found through my research is that it was even worse than I had ever imagined. Now, a lot of the times when people tell us to quit alcohol, it comes from an authority figure. Maybe that figure is your parents. Maybe that figure is your pastor at church or some sort of teacher or an adult. You say, okay, yeah, alcohol is bad for you, I'll quit, whatever, but you don't actually know what the alcohol is doing. And because of that, there's really nothing holding you back from indulging as soon as that authoritative figure is out of the picture, which is a lot of the times what happens when people go off to college or if they're in high school and the parents are gone for the weekend, or really there's any number of situations that you could fill in the blanks on that one. But what if you actually understood the poison that is alcohol? If you knew the poison and you knew what it was going to do, you would never want to drink ever again. And that's actually what happened for me. I was completely blindsided by my own research. I was not expecting to discover all of the things that I had discovered. So I want to hit this from the top, and I do actually intend on doing a long-form original content video on this where I'll have all of my notes and all of my research on hand. But the general gist of it is that alcohol, it's not even really alcohol. I want to call it by its actual name, which is ethanol. So there's many different types of alcohols out there, and if you look at the labels on different candies, for example, you might see things that say sugar alcohols. So there's more than one type of alcohol, but the alcohol that you drink, that's called ethanol. And ethanol on its own cannot be processed by the body. It has to be broken down into smaller parts. This whole entire process is what is called metabolism. Now, if you say the word metabolism, everybody loosely knows what that means, but a lot of people probably couldn't actually define it. So here's what metabolism is. Imagine that you've got a jar of jelly beans. You pour out the jelly beans on the table and you separate them by color. That is what metabolism is doing. At its very core concept, the word meta means to change. So your body is going to take this larger compound or this larger material and it's going to separate it. And through this separation, that's how your body is able to use it. So when you break something down into a smaller part, This thing is called a metabolite. So if you've got a metabolite, now your body can use that ingredient. Well, here's the problem with ethanol. Ethanol gets broken down into a few different things, but the thing that is most prevalent in ethanol is going to be a compound called acetaldehyde. And I'm going to get more detail on that here in a second, but it's some of the other ones, and forgive me if I get some of this prefixes and suffixes wrong here. I don't have my notes on hand, but I believe the other one is isovinyl acetate. We'll call it acetate for short for the remainder of this. Those are going to be the two primary metabolites that your body produces when it starts breaking down ethanol. Now, acetate, oddly enough, is a fuel source. Much like glucose or ketones, your body can actually use acetate. But that's not a good thing, and I'm going to break down why that is after we go over acetaldehyde. So acetaldehyde, when you get pulled, I'm not saying I want you guys getting pulled over, but if you did get pulled over, when a police officer is checking your blood for blood alcohol content, it's not actually looking for alcohol at that point. It's looking for acetaldehyde, and that is what goes through your bloodstream. That is what wreaks havoc on your body. That's actually what gives you the drunken feeling. When you consume alcohol, it immediately goes to the liver to be processed into acetaldehyde. And while this acetaldehyde is moving through your bloodstream, because it's water soluble, it gets into the blood and immediately starts circulating all throughout the body, wreaking havoc on all different kinds of cells, including the lungs and the brain. Actually, those two organs especially, because those are the two organs that retain the most blood. Oh, it looks like we got a lot of comments. We got lots of highs. In Indonesia, cool. I'll try to address some of the comments as I go. But staying on topic, when you've got acetaldehyde in your system, the rest of the alcohol is basically sitting in your stomach, killing off all of your internal gut bacteria. So imagine if you were to scrape your knee or if you fall down, one of the most common things to do is apply rubbing alcohol to the wound, right? And you would do that for the purpose of clearing out all of that bacteria on the wound. Well, we know that this is effective, but the ironic thing is that everybody loves drinking alcohol. Well, as opposed to the rubbing alcohol, once you've consumed the alcohol, that has nowhere to go. It's quite literally trapped in your gut. If I were to pour rubbing alcohol on my arm after scraping it or falling down, one in an injury. Well, on the other hand, if you are to take a shot of alcohol, say you've got vodka or tequila or whiskey, that is going straight to your stomach, and in your stomach it will sit until each bit of the alcohol can move to the liver and be turned into acetaldehyde and also acetate and then expelled through the body, eventually through your urine. While it's doing this, your gut bacteria is very rapidly being killed off. This is really not a good thing. And I don't want to get gross here, but if you've ever had a night out where you've really been drinking hard, 6 drinks or more, most people are going to be familiar the next morning when you use the toilet. You know, you got really chunky bowel movements, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, the reason for this really chunky bowel movements is that you literally killed off your healthy gut. Your body is purging what is basically dead, healthy gut bacteria. And from that point forward, it's going to take a long time for your gut to restore. Long after the hangover is complete. So a hangover is induced by multiple things, largely dehydration, which is going to reduce your electrolyte balance, resulting in headaches, lethargy, increased heart rate. If you've ever woken up at 4 in the morning after drinking, your heart rate's at like 120, 130 beats. That's because of the severe dehydration caused by the alcohol. But long after the hangover has passed, your healthy gut bacteria is still going to require, in some cases, weeks to recover. During this recovery period, you're not going to be fully optimized as a human being. And if you drink every weekend, and I'm telling you guys from experience, I myself was one of those people, you may never actually know what it feels like to have a healthy gut. You might have no frame of reference for it. Well, I can tell you guys from my own personal experience, it's been about 3 months since my last drink of alcohol. I don't need an alarm clock anymore. I wake up every single day. Hold on, guys. It rained really heavy, and I'm going to dodge the puddles in this trail. Hold on. All right. Without losing the topic here. Oh, man, my shoes are going to be disgusting after that one. So I have not needed my alarm clock in about 2.5 months. It really took about 2 weeks for my sobriety to really start showing like visible signs in my daily life of improvement, like something that I could actually qualify, say, yes, this is an area that is in fact improving. Waking up before my alarm was probably at the top of that list. This morning, without even trying, I woke up at 6 in the morning. I spent 2 hours editing my next video that'll come out tomorrow. I've already been to the gym. I've done a full back day. It's 10 in the morning and I am now live speaking to you. This would not be possible under any circumstance if I had been drinking even last weekend, because my circadian rhythm would be totally off. Not just from the one day of drinking, it'd be off the entire week until my healthy gut bacteria is back to full power. And that's a lot of the times why people that are chronic drinkers, they either have trouble getting to sleep, they have trouble staying asleep, or they get that incredibly groggy feeling in the morning when they wake up. All of these things are related to the acetaldehyde going through your system and wreaking havoc on your body. It's truly a terrible thing. Now, I want to talk about the acetate for a moment, because I did mention earlier that because of metabolites, ethanol has to get processed into different things, and acetate is one of them. So your body runs on multiple different energy sources. Most of the times it's running on glucose. If you've been following my other videos, or even if you're here from the first time and you want to do the ketogenic diet, then your body runs on ketones. And ketones is basically the absence of glucose. I like to make the analogy, it's kind of like gasoline and diesel. When you're on a gasoline engine, it burns hot and bright, but it needs to be refueled often. Diesel burns a little bit slower, but it's long lasting, and it stays hot for a long time. Well, acetate is like nuclear jet engine fuel. You can feel a lot of energy in a short amount of time, but it's coming from a very poisonous source. For some of you watching, you might be familiar with games like Dungeons and Dragons or World of Warcraft. Maybe you play Magic the Gathering. You're all probably familiar with the character archetype that damages themselves in order to gain power. This is what acetate does. And while it makes for a cool gameplay concept, it is not cool in real life. These characters, if you play them, have the names of things like Fanatic or a Zealot. Or if they use magical abilities, you call them a Warlock or a Necromancer. Just to name a few. They damage themselves, they gain more power, but in real life, you don't get to respawn There is no next game. So when you have athletes out there that say they perform better when they've been drinking, what's really happening is they're borrowing strength from tomorrow to be better very, very momentarily. And I myself have been guilty of this most of my life. So if you're just tuning in, I play rec league hockey. I've been playing rec league hockey for a few years now. I'm on 2 different leagues. I play year round, so I'm basically playing 2 games of hockey every week, all the time. It's going to take me years to have as many sober games as I've had drunk games. They call it beer league for a reason. When you get into the locker room, there's usually a rotation or an honor system. People bring a case of beer. It sits in the middle next to a trash can. Everyone drinks before the game. Everyone drinks after the game. That's why they call it beer league. And I used to joke that I would play my best game of hockey on 3 beers. But I didn't understand the mechanisms behind what was going on. I just knew if I had a few beers, I felt looser, I felt more engaged. I didn't realize what was really happening is the reason I was having that performance increase was because I was filling my body up with acetate. And I always had trouble getting to bed after playing hockey. I'd be laying in bed at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, can't sleep, and wake up the next day feeling absolutely terrible. I always just sort of assumed, well, that's just because I'm playing hockey until, 11:30 at night, sometimes midnight. That's the way it goes with rec league hockey. You have to play when the ice is available. Well, that would be the acetate talking. You could play hockey and do just as fine having a Gatorade, get all of the same benefits that you think you're getting from the booze, minus all of the downsides from the booze. The people say that everything's okay in moderation. When it comes to alcohol, you start at 0 and you work your way down. Yes, 1 beer is not going to destroy your life, but it's still working you away from a neutral state. Sorry guys, I'm hill climbing. I hope I don't get too out of breath here. So it goes a little bit even deeper than that. Hold on, let me get focused here. I got 2 more houses and then I'm off the hills. By the way, beautiful neighborhood. I'm in Birmingham, Michigan. I like to go somewhere different every Sunday. That way the environment is mixed up. Last week I did a trail walk. Week before that I did the Detroit River Walk. Anyways, back to the effects of drinking and sports performance. I really lost my train of thought. Let me see if I can get it back. If you're watching this after I post, just kind of skip ahead until I start talking again. Because doing those hill climbs really kind of broke up my mental momentum there. Whew. All right, there we go. All right, let's talk about recovery from alcohol. When you drink with a combination of acetaldehyde and the acetate, you're not going to be recovering during your sleep as well as you normally would have. So after doing some sports, when you drink, while you're laying in bed, you may not actually ever achieve deep, full REM sleep, which is where a majority of your recovery comes from. That is a significant problem because you can build up as much fatigue and as much stimulus during the day as you want. If you don't get good sleep, all of that exercise, it basically goes to nothing. There's no growth there. Your body is struggling just to repair the tissue, not even improve it. And this is really a problem for chronic drinkers. You'll notice the heavier someone drinks, usually the more skinny they actually are. And this is a strange phenomenon because a lot of people say drinking makes you overweight. But severe drinking actually makes you really skinny. It's because your body is no longer able to recover on its own, and you're basically wasting away until you become like sickly, 140 pounds, looking like you just escaped a gulag. It really is a terrible thing. And the alcohol dependence, because it's so addictive, it becomes actually a problem to just outright quit alcohol altogether. The withdrawal symptoms of doing something like that can in fact be fatal, which is crazy for the casual drinker to comprehend. But if you've built up a long enough alcohol dependency, it is something that you quite literally have to, wean off of, or else your body will basically go into cardiac arrest and your heart will stop. It's crazy how all these things work. And it's true of other drugs too, like heroin and fentanyl and things like that. But everybody kind of knows that, right? I don't really have to tell people not to do heroin. It's sort of just obvious. I don't have to tell people not to do fentanyl. That one's just sort of obvious. But you have to tell people not to drink, and they look at you like you're crazy. But it's equally as harmful. In fact, in some ways, I would argue that alcohol is just as dangerous for you as cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin. I'd say fentanyl still probably takes the cake of worst thing you could possibly put in your body. But when you're in a competition racing towards the bottom, does it really matter? I would say you'd be much better off just cutting everything out completely. Now, there are some challenges here, and I'm definitely going to acknowledge those. Drinking is incredibly ingrained in our society. I mean, just about everywhere you go, everywhere you look, someone is drinking or turning some sort of event into a drinking event. Even if you go on, like for example, doing a half marathon or a full marathon, you get to the finish line, and there's oftentimes people handing out beer, which it's really kind of crazy if you think about. You spend all of this time getting healthy to do like what is arguably the most healthy thing you can do is these endurance races, just to finish it off with literal poison. But it's ingrained in our society to do that. And it always has been, not just in our culture, but everywhere. Even since the Old Testament days, people have been fermenting alcohol and drinking it. In fact, I am myself a Bible reader. If you look through the Old Testament, these guys were drinking wine like it was going out of style. So it's not like this is just a new concept. And a lot of the times in these old biblical scriptures, the reason you needed a prophet or, a wise leader in the community is because they didn't have Google back then. You could not just, hey, Google, what happens when I drink all of this wine? The sciences had not been developed yet, so you would have prophets or village leaders or pastors or what have you that would tell the people what is and is not okay. So it's not that there's just this abstract, alcohol is bad for you. What it is that the ethanol is bad for you. And the ethanol goes through your metabolism, gets broken down into acetaldehyde and acetate. Those are what is actually not good for you. And there's more I can say about acetaldehyde than just the, havoc it wreaks on you in the short term. It's been shown by the WHO, who I know isn't that credible of a source anymore, but even broken clocks are right twice a day. They have labeled alcohol, or really acetaldehyde to be more specific, as a class 1 carcinogen, meaning it is at the top of the list for things that lead to cancer. So if you were someone that is really health conscious, you go on forums and yell at people for putting aluminum in your deodorant, or you're having too many plastic water bottles, if you're drinking alcohol on the weekends, you're completely missing the point. If there's anything that you should be cutting out, it's the alcohol. Cut the alcohol first. Then if you want to go and do the extra stuff of skipping all plastics and not wearing aluminum, and I even heard some guys say not to touch receipts. Like, I don't even know what that is, but why would you do all of that and then still drink on the weekends? You're completely missing the point. But the problem is a lot of people just don't know. A lot of people just don't know. I didn't even know until a few months ago when I started reading up on all of this. And so that's why I'm working on a really big video. It'll be more structured than this live stream. It'll have chapters and, I'll go from topic to topic. But this is something that's really important to me because I know it's probably, aside from weight loss, it's probably the number 2 thing that people struggle with. I mean, I used to be a cigarette smoker, and even quitting cigarettes was easier than quitting alcohol. Because if you go out on a Friday night, no one's asking you, hey, Andrew, why aren't you having a Marlboro Gold right now? Everyone else is having a Marlboro Gold. Why aren't you? Well, it just doesn't happen that way. But it definitely happens with booze. What I have found works for me is that I can still go to bars. In fact, I went to a bar last night. We have the Stanley Cup Finals going on right now. Game 2, Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. Not a fan of either team, but I like watching hockey. I go out with the guys. I sit down at the table, and I'm getting Heineken Zeros all night. I know some people that are really sober be like, oh, why don't you just get straight up water? Well, I think that a lot of the times, especially with lifelong friends, being sober when everyone else isn't, it does make other people socially uncomfortable. There's a lot of nuance that goes on here. People watching my channel that are, seeing me for the first time, they only know me as the healthy YouTuber guy that makes videos. But people I grew up with, they knew the way I used to be. They know how much I used to drink. So for them to see me being this healthy, it's kind of this uncanny valley. Like, who is this guy I'm hanging out with? He looks like my friend, but he's behaving vastly different. So I try not to make people feel socially uncomfortable. And for me, that goes a long way. But having something like a Heineken Zero or a Budweiser Zero is still in the bottle. You can move around the bar. It looks like you're participating, even though you're really not. And what I have found is once you get over your own anxiety of being a sober guy at a party, you end up loosening up anyways. After maybe a half hour, whether I've had one Heineken Zero or 2, after about a half hour, I just find myself more social anyways. And I can switch on and off at any time. I never have to worry about getting home. I never have to worry about making a reckless decision. In my younger years, and I'm not sure how much of this I want to reveal, but in my 20s, I was a destructive drunk. So I would drink and then I would break things. And hold on, let me get across the street. And as a 21-year-old, I thought it was funny. But reflecting back on that, I was basically a criminal that never got caught. A lot of times I was vandalizing my own property, but not every single time. When I was in college in a fraternity, one thing I do vaguely remember was for whatever reason, I would break into sorority houses and steal furniture. I don't know why. Maybe it's just you're young, drunk, and you're 21. But I would take furniture from sorority houses and hide it in my own fraternity basement. Well, one night at like 4 a.m, somehow I got it in my head, along with some other guys, that we were going to just start destroying all the furniture that we had collected. And eventually, these sororities found out that We had taken their furniture, and we could not explain to them why we couldn't give it back. And this, maybe it's a little comical looking back on it, but that's the kind of behavior that I was engaged in. And looking back on that, I would never have gone into a sorority house, stolen a couch, and then smashed it to pieces with a sledgehammer if I wasn't completely dysfunctional from drinking. And so, for me, the gains of drinking they start at zero and you work your way down. Why not just cut it out altogether? You can still be social. You can still go to places in public. You can still interact with people. You just don't drink anymore. I know it can be a pretty hard adjustment to make, but if you understand all of the things going inside of your body when you're drinking, it becomes a lot easier. The long-term damage of alcohol abuse will win 100% of the time. And unfortunately, it usually doesn't catch up to you until you're older, which is when people start doing things like blaming their age or their genetics, or just saying this is the way life is. But that's not true at all. It's all stems from years of abuse on your body from when you were at a younger age, doing things that are absolutely reckless, and then you pay for it later. I heard an interesting quote not too long ago that you might be over your past, but your past is not over you. That in itself is a very sobering thought. The things that you have done to your own body in your youth can hang on to you for a very long time. I was a heavy drinker for probably about 10 years. And even for me, I'll never really know if I'm truly 100% recovered. Maybe I can get to 90%, maybe it's 85%. There's no way for me to know what would I have been like if I had never had a single drop of alcohol. Because booze, whether we like it or not, is entering your brain directly through the bloodstream. After all, alcohol is water soluble. And it's basically wreaking havoc inside of your head. It's like if you've ever watched Dexter's Lab, alcohol is like DD pulling out wires out of all of the computers. When you wake up in the morning after drinking and you have, a loss of memory, this is because the acetaldehyde, remember, ethanol gets broken down into acetaldehyde. It enters your brain and starts quite literally shutting off the synapses inside your own brain, interfering directly with memory retention and other very important parts of the body. I'm going to move directions because there's a construction crew and I don't want to have loud machinery overpowering this video. There's so much that we even still to this day don't fully understand that's going on when you drink alcohol, between the damage it does to your brain and also the damage it does to your healthy gut. But we can observe the side effects, and we've been able to do this throughout all of human history. This is why it's so important that in a time before there were sciences, that village leaders and authoritative figures in the societies would tell the common people not to do this, not to do that. There's a lot of nuance to these things, especially when it comes to religion. When people, talk about Old Testament, New Testament, the times were different back then. The biggest thing is that back then in those times, they didn't have Google and search engines. So you had to have someone who was responsible in a more academic field. This would be like a pastor or some sort of authoritative figure, maybe like a village shaman. You get the picture. This person would communicate to the rest of the group what is okay and what is not. And oftentimes they'd have to present it in a way that the common person could understand. If I go up to a villager in 4000 BC living in Carthage or Bethlehem or any of these different, biblical places, Macedonia, whatever. And I start saying, hey, you can't eat bacon because the pig has not been sterilized, the meat has not been cleaned. They're not going to understand that you have to clean the meat. I mean, sure, maybe you know what rinsing is like, but they're not going to know that you have to salt it, and it has to have all the bacteria killed. So what do? You just say, okay, the pig is off limits. And now the villagers think, okay, if I eat the pig, I'm going to die. That is how pork became basically banned throughout the BC period. Well, now in the modern world, we know that you can clean the pig. If you clean the pig, there is zero things wrong with it, right? I would have to imagine that Moses and Abraham probably also knew this. But it was easier for them to just tell the common people, this will make you sick and die, this won't, don't eat this, don't eat that, and to keep it simple and high level. And so forth, these things do get passed down through the generations. Same goes with the alcohol in the Old Testament. When it says, do not drink, they're not saying do not drink because, your body will be possessed by some demonic spirit. They're saying that because they understood that the alcohol will basically devour your body from the inside out and turn you into a husk of a human. That's my opinion anyways. I could be completely wrong. Maybe the alcohol really does get you possessed by demonic spirits, but I just think that we're really fortunate to live in an era where all the information that you could possibly want to know is readily available here on the internet. But you have to use it. And you have to be able to sift through the good information from the bad information. And that's kind of what I want to help do for you guys. I don't want to just tell you to quit drinking alcohol for some abstract, oh, it's going to ruin your life. I want to tell you guys why it's going to ruin your life from a chemistry point of view. Acetaldehyde, acetate, two things that you don't want in your body because they are poisonous and will wreak havoc on your internal organs. It really doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. Got to get the ethanol. Remember, alcohol is really just ethanol. You've got to get the ethanol as far away from your liver as you possibly can. If you do that, you're going to feel really good all the time. You're going to be doing things like I'm able to do, which is get up every morning at 6 a.m. and knock out the day. All that time wasted being hungover really eats away at your productivity. And if you're in a position in life where you're thinking, well, how do I get ahead? How do I get things better? What you do on the weekends is a really big deal. All of us Monday through Friday probably have day jobs where you work all day, you go home, you're exhausted. What you do on the weekends determines whether or not you're able to rise above and improve. Oh, did I lose you guys? Oh, man. Let's see. Am I still alive? It said connection lost. Well, I'm going to assume I'm still alive since the counter's still going up. I had a little connection issue there. I am streaming on cellular data, so I'm sometimes at the mercy of that. So, anyways, in our current culture, our current society, not just in America, but basically everywhere, thanks to the rise of the internet and also global economy, the separation between the rich and poor has never been more apparent, and it's only going to get wider, meaning the rich are definitely going to get richer, and the poor are going to get poorer. And so by mitigating the things that are keeping you poor, I'm not saying that you're automatically going to become rich, but you're at least trying to put some of the cards back in your deck so that it's not completely stacked against you. If you're spending your weekends hungover like I used to my entire 20s, if you count them up, 10 years of drinking, there's 52 weeks a year. I've had probably 550 Sundays where I was indisposed. There was basically no productive effort coming out of me on those days whatsoever. The only thing I could manage to do was to sit on a couch somewhere, have a Bloody Mary, and continue watching football. During that time, my life was not moving forward. I had no forward momentum. In fact, during those times, I was probably actually spending money because Bloody Marys aren't free. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. You drink heavy on a Friday night, you drink heavy on a Saturday night, your Sunday is a complete wash, and then next thing you know, you're back to your day job, Monday to Friday, working for money that gets basically spent on getting back to work. And that is how this society is going to, continue moving forward. We're not going to be able to save everybody, but if I can instill the idea to at least a small handful of people to turn their weekends into ultra productivity machines, you can at least escape the extreme poverty that I believe is coming. Because I don't think that any one of us has the power to actually stop it altogether. I think the best that you can hope for is to rise above and not drown. It's kind of like being stranded in the ocean. If you're paddling your whole life, neck up to your water, that is a terrible way to live. I don't want to be morbid, but at what point is it better to just drown? You know what I mean? But if you're able to, let's, for example, paddle your way to some plywood, now at least your body is out of the water and you're floating. You continue to float for a while, but since you're on the, above the water, you can paddle, you can kind of move around a bit. You find more wood, and you kind of assemble a raft. And then one day, you find someone else who's also on a raft. You start working together, you start building up your flotation device. Maybe eventually you're on an actual boat. And I use this analogy to kind of illustrate that, we're moving towards a sink or swim world, but people that are on boats are thriving. Life is going well for them. It's two different worlds. And I had a taste of what this world was like when I went to Europe for 2 weeks. Went to Switzerland for a ski trip. And I got to see what it looks like for people who, that's like kind of their whole life, is being at, what do they call those things? Like an outdoor deck in France. Châtel or whatever. Anyways, they're on an outdoor patio, sipping on Pellegrino waters, skiing all day. That's a real lifestyle for the ultra rich. While people like us are going to day jobs here in America, working just to have money to go back to work and do it all over again. Because it's a sink or swim world we're heading towards. If you sober up, let's see which direction I want to turn. Let's go this way. If you sober up, and you stop drinking on the weekends, and you start using that time productively, you can generate enough income to start investing in yourself. Because your day job is probably not going to produce much investment. Your day job is literally there to get your rent paid, your car payment paid. It's to keep you alive. If you get yourself a secondary income, something that you can do on the side, that's the money that you use to claw your way out of what is going to be the new poverty line. And it's definitely coming. I can't stop it. You can't stop it. The best thing you can do is just try to rise above it. So you sober up, find something you can do. Maybe for some of you guys, that's working at a restaurant. Maybe, I mean, shoot, you got a day job. Maybe pick up some hours at a local restaurant. Maybe you do DoorDash. There's a lot of different ways to make it work, but all of it becomes possible once you've sobered up. And that's what's really happened for me. I have really, in the past 4 years, basically rejected the party lifestyle. I'll go out for a little bit, but I'm never out past 1 a.m. anymore because the opportunity cost is too high. And that's something I truly believe. All of these things kind of worked well together. Weight loss, sobering up, becoming more productive, making more money. All of these things have positive feedback towards one another. And if you excel in one area, it's only a matter of time before you excel in the other. And so that's why you guys should sober up. Worked for me. I hate to be arrogant about it, but you go to the bar with your friends, watch a game, watch the Stanley Cup final. You could have a sparkling water, or you could have a Heineken Zero, Budweiser Zero. All of that works. Maybe you have a coffee. It doesn't affect your gut health. It doesn't affect your brain. You're able to get to bed on time, wake up early, and seize the day. I'm already on my third activity for the day. It's not even 11 a.m. This is all possible by being sober. And so I highly encourage anyone listening to this, whether it's live or after the fact, to just cut it out completely. Not because of some abstract idea of it being bad for you or anything like that, but from a chemistry standpoint, understanding the dire effects of alcohol. And that's basically it. What I really want to do is shoot this again, but with like a script, and I'll make sure that, I go from point to point so it doesn't meander as much. But I want to make sure I get all the facts right when I do that. So right now, this is kind of like a dry run, I'm doing it live. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. The nice thing about the live format is that it gives me the opportunity to kind of try things out. If it works, I post it. If it doesn't work, I don't post it. But you at least get to try it out with a live audience, see what, how people respond to it, how they react to it. Don't have to worry about, real-time editing or anything like that. And so I really am looking forward to shooting this video. I think realistically I'll have it done sometime in August. So I really want to make sure that I've got all my vocabulary in order, that I get it all right on the first time, because it's a really important topic to me. Aside from that, I'm still really invested in the health and fitness lifestyle. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, and I don't want to say that I'm not going to compete again, but I don't really anticipate competing again in the year 2024. Instead, I've moved on to more endurance sports. So I ran a 10K yesterday. It was awesome. It was actually my personal best. I ran my fastest 10K of all time yesterday. And I've got my first half marathon coming up on Saturday, June 15th. So both of those things have really kind of taken a big priority for me. Once I'm wrapped up with the half marathon, I'm going to be myself getting back on a little bit of a more strict ketogenic diet so that I can cut down a few more pounds that I've kind of put on through this half marathon training. When it comes to doing long distance cardio, being in a calorie deficit is not always like what you want, right? You get into a calorie deficit, and then midway through your run, you get what they call bonking out, or hitting the wall. And what that means is that your body quite literally stops being able to flex its muscles, and you kind of like are forced to come to a screeching halt. So for that reason, I have actually kind of increased my calories to a point where I'm no longer in a calorie deficit. But once the half marathon is complete, I will probably go back to a little bit more strict keto, a little bit less carbohydrates. But that's the way I view diet, you guys. Like, the dieting is like this. You've got like a Swiss Army knife. The diet's like a Swiss Army knife. You got a weight loss diet, and you got a strength gaining diet, and then there's like a maintenance diet. And there's no one diet for every single situation. So I coach a lot of people on weight loss dieting because that's where, a majority of people need the most help. But I don't necessarily follow a weight loss diet all the time. Like right now, I'm eating a lot of carbohydrates, way more than anyone on the ketogenic diet would, which means I'm kind of not really in ketosis during my marathon prep. But once it's over, I'll be back on keto because it's such an easy diet to maintain, especially like through the day. You don't get as hungry. You don't spend as much time worrying about food or eating food. That's because being in ketosis, it makes your insulin sensitivity go way up. And when your insulin sensitivity is way up, you no longer need to eat as much food to get full. And so all these things kind of compound on each other. When you're full, there's a hormone called there's a hormone called leptin that when you're full, it's going to make your body no longer desire food. The easiest way to get leptin is to be insulin sensitive. When you're insulin resistant, which is like people that are like pre-diabetic, get insulin resistant, no matter how much food they eat, they never feel satisfied, or even worse, they feel hungry again after like a half hour or an hour. And when I say feel hungry, I mean they actually get hunger pains. It's not like boredom eating, but it's actual pain in the stomach signaling to them to eat. So that happens when you're on a very carbohydrate-rich diet that gets out of control. A lot of the times this comes from things like corn syrups and lots of bread eating. You don't really get that from like healthy foods. Like, you can eat basically as many potatoes as you want, as much fruit as you want, and you won't get an insulin problem. But it can happen from bread. It certainly happen from high fructose corn syrup. So I would say any and all pop, just forget about it. Never drink it ever again. No Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Coca-Cola, none of that stuff. Some people like diet sodas. I used to be a diet soda drinker myself. I have done some research that says that diet soda, the aspartame, can really interfere with your healthy gut. For that reason alone, I've dialed back on it almost entirely. I don't know for certain that that's true or not, but if the opportunity cost is that I just switch from Diet Coke to, LaCroix sparkling waters, I don't think that's too much of a sacrifice to make. I still enjoy the LaCroix. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's not a big deal. But if I'm right, then I'm sparing my gut all of this internal damage from killing off the healthy gut bacteria with aspartame. And I have noticed when I do drink a lot of Diet Cokes, my anxiety goes up. Trouble sleeping. I know that some of that could be the caffeine, but I don't know. To some point, there's so much research and all out there, but just pay attention to the way you feel. You can almost always get the answers you're looking for internally if you just work the problem out yourself. I found that having diet pop, lots of aspartame and things of that sort just caused me a lot of internal struggle. So I gave it up and things seem to be working out pretty well for me. So that's that. We're almost up at the hour. I like to do these for full hour-long sessions. That way, if you are listening to these while you do cardio, if you do an hour of cardio, you can do an hour of this. It kind of works out that way. So from this point forward, I've got a video coming out tomorrow. It's going to be going over my results for my most recent 10K. That'll be posted tomorrow at 3 p.m. These walk-in talks I always do at 10 in the morning on Sundays. I would like to eventually have a third video come out per week. That might be more possible as some of my health and fitness challenges die down a little bit. I'm spending a lot of my free time training right now, so going on daily runs, 5-6 miles each. By the time I'm done with that, it's usually 9 p.m., 9:30, so it's tough for me to work on videos during the week. But I think I would eventually like to get a Wednesday or a Thursday upload going as well. But in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Check out my original content. I try to make sure that you guys get a well-rounded dose of information. So cardio, weight training, and diet. I'm a firm believer that you need to have all three to be successful. And if you can pull that off, weights, cardio, diet, you can eventually get your dream physique. It may not happen overnight, but I would be hard-pressed to find somebody that's neglecting one of those three and is able to succeed. So, there's a lot of give and take there. You got to make sure that you're excelling in all three areas. So I make a video on all three topics. Sometimes, the audiences may not always cross-pollinate, but in an ideal world, I'd like to get everybody kind of focused on that one direction. It seems like a lot of bodybuilders don't like cardio. I'm going to see if I can fix that. Turn that ship around, But you also got to maintain good, healthy eating habits. Another thing I want to change, I don't want to spout too much off, just want to get this one last thing off my chest. There's a lot of people on the carnivore diet that they almost treat it like it's a cult and not like a weight loss program. There's no prize in the mail for being 100% strict carnivore. You don't get any award. You don't get a gold star on the fridge. If you want to have some fruit at night, have some fruit. I prefer having frozen blueberries. It's my go-to. You are not going to gain weight eating frozen blueberries, period. It's just not going to happen. Frozen strawberries, even more so. You can have fruit. Even if you're on carnivore, you heard it from me, you can have fruit. And I really want to help kind of change that perspective because meat doesn't have vitamin C, doesn't have antioxidants. Your body was designed to be able to eat both. So you really, in order to be optimized, should be having both. So that's about it. I'm going to wrap things up. It's been a beautiful day out. Not a cloud in the sky. I always love it when we have a nice weather. Last week it rained during my podcast. I had to do it sitting in my truck the whole time, and that wasn't much fun. So really enjoy the good weather. With that, you guys, if you want to connect with me, subscribe to my channel. You can check out some of my other socials on Instagram. It's basically just whatever I want to post. There's no niche on my Insta. Check me out there. And then I have a Discord group as well. If you guys need support, you're on the keto diet, carnivore diet, I'm there answering questions when I can. You can check that out, get on the right path, and I will help you the best I can. With that, looks like we are at the hour. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this walk and talk. I am going to go and get some lunch. I will see you in the next one. Peace.